Chapter 4 by Kate, Ella, and Renee. The most important concept in our chapter is proving triangles congruent, because it is a crucial concept that will come in handy later on in your math career. Proving triangles congruent. If 3 sides of one triangle are congruent to 3 sides of a second triangle, then the triangles are congruent. This is called the SSS postulate. 2 triangles are congruent if they both have 2 congruent sides and an included angle by SAS postulate. If 2 angles and the included side of one triangle are congruent to 2 angles and the included side of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent by ASA postulate. 2 angles and the non-included side of one triangle are congruent to the corresponding 2 angles and side of a second triangle, then the 2 triangles are congruent by AAS postulate. The most difficult concept in Chapter 4 is coordinate proofs because they take a long time, they're complicated, and they have a lot of steps. For coordinate proofs, there are only 3 formulas you need to know: slope, midpoint, and distance. In this example of a coordinate proof, the given is that triangle ABC is a right isosceles triangle with hypotenuse AB. M is the midpoint of AP. Prove that CM is perpendicular to AB. Steps for doing a coordinate proof. Number 1. Place a figure in the coordinate plane. When placing a figure in the coordinate plane, try to use the first quadrant, the origin or the axis, and coordinates that make calculations as easy as possible. Once you've drawn your coordinate plane, start at the origin and go from there, A length to the right, plotting your point at A0, and B length to the top, plotting your point at 0B. Then add the midpoint M between A and B. Step 2. Find the coordinates of the hypotenuse's midpoint. Find the coordinates of M, use the midpoint formula. In this case, the coordinates of M would be A. Label M with those coordinates. Step 3. Find the slopes of AB and CM. We're using the slope formulas to find the slopes of AB and CM. Since -1 and 1 are opposite reciprocals, AB and CM are perpendicular. Yay! Our free choice concept from Chapter 4 is classifying triangles because it is another basic concept that is helpful throughout the rest of geometry. If all 3 angles in a triangle are congruent, it is an equiangular triangle. If all 3 angles in a triangle are acute, then it is an acute triangle. If there is one obtuse angle in a triangle, then it is an obtuse triangle. If there is one right angle, then it is a right triangle. That is how you classify triangles by their angle. If all 3 sides in a triangle are congruent, it is an equilateral triangle. If at least 2 sides in a triangle are congruent, it is an isosceles triangle. An equilateral triangle is also isosceles. A scalene triangle has no congruent sides. That is how you classify triangles by their sides. Okay. Here are some examples of classifying triangles. This triangle has sides 8, 10, and 4. It is a right scalene triangle. This triangle has a 120-degree angle and 2 congruent sides. It is an isosceles obtuse triangle. This triangle has 3 congruent sides and angles. It is an equiangular equilateral triangle.